Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am immensely proud to be here today amongst you to partake in this very important forum. Allow me to thank the organizers of this event for their warm welcome and for the great initiative they have shown in bringing together the coffee industry in the heart of Asia. Today, we find ourselves faced with a critical threat to the livelihoods of millions of coffee producers around the globe, posed by the rapid deterioration in prices that we have witnessed over the past 2 years. I would like to take this opportunity to look at the fundamentals of the coffee sector and suggest how the international coffee community and the ICO, the International Coffee Organization, more specifically, can help to promote a more sustainable coffee economy. I will start by giving you an overview of the International Coffee Organization. The ICO was created 50 years ago. We just celebrated our 50th anniversary in Belo Horizonte in Brazil, and we had a strong Korean delegation present at the meeting. For many years, until the creation of the ICO, coffee-producing countries had been seeking assistance to reduce the volatility and cyclical swings in the coffee prices. A favorable socio-economic climate existed for direct regulation of the world coffee market, and this led to the creation of the ICO in 1963. Initially, the market was regulated through a system of export quotas, whose objectives was to smooth out the fluctuations in coffee prices by allowing a limited amount of coffee in the international market. The system also contained a number of instruments, including a target price range, strict controls, and adjustment mechanisms. This system worked relatively well until 1989. However, as time went by, problems slowly began to appear. The distribution of quotas among exporting countries and other internal arrangements were a permanent source of conflict. Moreover, the social-political climate had changed considerably. These facts combined meant that the political will to maintain a regulated market no longer existed, and the quota system was brought to an end in July 1989. Hence, from 1989 onwards, the International Coffee Organization took a different course to adapt to a new role in the world stage. The ICO is an intergovernmental organization, which means that membership is open only to governments and is divided into two categories, exporting and importing members. The organization's current membership consists of 39 exporting members and 6 importing members, including the countries of the European Union, which makes 72 countries in total. Together, our members account for more than 95% of the coffee produced in the world and more than 80% of the coffee world consumption. One of the main objectives of the ICO is to strengthen the global coffee sector and promote its sustainable expansion in a market-based environment for the betterment of all participants in the sector. the ICO executes the International Coffee Agreement, which is periodically negotiated in order to keep it updated and relevant to the current market conditions. Currently, we are implementing the 7th International Coffee Agreement. Furthermore, every 5 years, we organize the World Coffee Conference, which is attended by over 1,000 people from all over the world to discuss issues relevant to the coffee sector. The next one will be held in 2015. To enhance the transparency of the coffee sector and provide all participants in the coffee value chain with the means to take well-informed decisions, the ICO prepares economic studies, publishes a wide selection of data on all aspects of the coffee sector, including prices, trade, production, consumption, and stocks. Alongside our routine work on prices and statistical data, we are working on 2 specific initiatives that I want to share with you here. In the first place, we are developing, in partnership with the World Bank, to carry out a study on risk and finance in the coffee sector. I just see Professor Gilbert arriving, and he's a fine analyst on risk and management in the coffee sector. This study will identify various risks in the coffee value chain and identify measures to address them. In doing so, we expect to improve the availability of finance for small and medium-scale producers and provide a handbook for supply chain participants to tackle risk and improve the value for lenders. The ICO's commitment to provide statistics to the coffee sector, an informal coffee roundtable on statistics with leading analysts from across the industry has been established to discuss and compare the results in a spirit of collaboration and good faith. It is no secret that there is a wide divergence between the estimates provided by the trade, government agencies, and the ICO itself. This can only contribute to greater distortions in the market and speculative activities that we all wish to avoid. Turning to environmental sustainability, the ICO has aimed to establish itself as the focal point for information on environmental concerns for the world coffee sector. In particular, we are paying special attention to the effects of the climate change and its consequences for present and future supply. A multitude of potential strategies for mitigation and adaptation to climate change have been put forward by various proponents. But what has been missing from this dialogue is a practical and easily available guide for farmers to take a hands-on approach on the problem. To this end, we are engaging with the Coffee and Climate Initiative so as to enhance our outreach in this field and potentially host a toolbox to allow coffee farmers around the world to access a practical guide on adaptation to climate change and mitigation on its harmful effects. Another important part of our work is to sponsor coffee development projects. The ICO plays an important function in providing analysis and advice on the preparation of projects, approving projects to submission to donor and financing agencies, supervising project execution, and disseminating results. Over the last 15 years, the ICO has helped put into effect more than 35 projects in developing countries with a total value of more than $105 million US. The ICO places a lot of emphasis on promotion and market development, which is one of the objectives of the International Coffee Agreement. As part of its market development strategies, the ICO pays particular attention to matters relating to coffee and health. For many years, coffee has had an undeserved reputation as being harmful to human health. Numerous scientific studies show that coffee consumption can have a positive impact on health. To disseminate correct media coverage on coffee, the ICO has helped to set up a special website called Coffee and Health, which presents scientific evidence on coffee. We have also helped to establish campaigns to provide doctors and other healthcare professionals with correct information. As a result of these efforts, the image of the impact on coffee and on health has changed and is now widely regarded in positive terms. As part of its mission to disseminate knowledge on coffee, the ICO is also intensely involved in questions related to quality and food safety. We have instituted a voluntary quality improvement program that now covers more than 60% of the world coffee exports. In addition, we have implemented important projects in the area of food safety, especially one of prevention of mold formation, conducted in partnership with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. I would like to take a look now on the world coffee market. And as I mentioned before, it is important to start with the prices. Coffee prices suffered a further decline in October 2013, which stands at its lowest level since March 2009. In real terms, the composite indicator is now close to the level of January 2000, which marked the beginning of the period known as the coffee crisis. We have our coffee farmers around the world suffering a real great crisis. And it's something that the ICO tries to address together with the consuming nations. There can be no doubt that in many countries, the prices received by the coffee growers fail to cover the unit cost of production, while at the same time, the prices of basic goods, such as food and energy, are rising. We can see that all coffee price indicators are falling. And it's a steady decline since 2010, 2011. Talking about the total coffee exports, we have seen a steady increase in the exports, with the exception of the other milds that suffered a lot in terms of the coffee leaf rust. Total production has increased to 145 million bags in the year 2012-2013. It was a production rise by nearly 8% last year to a record level of 145 million bags, like I said, compared to total consumption in 2012, in the calendar year of 2012, of 142 million bags. There has therefore been a supply a surplus in supply in the market, which has exerted sustained downward pressure on coffee prices. As I mentioned before, we had a decline in the coffee production in the Central America region because of the coffee leaf rust that I'm going to mention later on in my talk. All the other regions have increased their production. In this graph, we have the top 10 coffee producers. It's self-explanatory. We see the Brazilian coffee crop reaching record levels, the result of good agricultural practices made possible by the high prices we saw 2 years ago. We are not going to see the same in the next years because of the decline in prices, unfortunately. Vietnam has grown from a negligible volume in 1990 to 22 million bags in each of the last 2 years. Production has also increased in Colombia, which for over 4 years was hit by an outbreak of disease, adverse weather, and a subsequent plant renovation program, which is now starting to bear fruit. Santiago is going to provide us with a much better view on in an outlook of the Colombian production. Production reached 10 million bags in 2012-2013 and seems set to continue its recovery in the coming year, with October 2013 recording the highest monthly output since 2007. 2012-13 also saw much improved production performance across Africa, with 9 out of the 10 leading producers increasing their output. The coffee industry in Africa suffered mixed fortunes over the last 20 years, with market liberalization programs, internal conflicts having detrimental consequences on national production. However, a renewed commitment has seen in recent years with coffee development strategies launched by several countries, including Tanzania and Uganda, among others, and particularly strong performance by Ethiopia, which gives optimism that the continent can fulfill its potential production prospects. Less happy is the report from Central America, where in the last year, coffee leaf rust, a plant-eating fungus which can have devastating effects on production, has swept across the region with dire consequences for smallholder farmers. Around 2.7 million bags of coffee are estimated to be lost, and the long-term effects will be even more severe. I visited the 5 affected countries, including Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica, to see for myself the damage and assess the situation. As a result, the ICO is working together with coffee authorities in the region on an action plan to combat coffee leaf rust, which includes raising public awareness, promoting sustainable growing practices, and encouraging planting renovation programs, particularly for small farmers, which are the most affected. As I mentioned before, world consumption is estimated at 142 million bags for the calendar year 2012, and has been growing at around 2.5% per annum since 2000. Total world consumption could reach a minimum of 160 million bags by 2020, and up to 173 million bags if demand continues to grow at its current rate. This buoyancy in world consumption is due mainly to the dynamic growth of domestic consumption in exporting countries and emerging markets. Domestic consumption in exporting countries has been increasing at over 3% since 2009, and now it stands at 43 million bags, or around 30% of the world total. Living standards in coffee exporting countries continue to improve, creating a strong potential for growth in domestic consumption with the expanding middle class. Coffee consumption in the traditional markets of importing countries such as European Union and United States has recorded modest growth, currently at 1% per year. These coffee markets are generally more saturated, and growth is mostly seen in niche markets such as single-serve pods and specialty coffee shops. However, traditional markets still account for half the total coffee consumption at just over 71 million bags per year. The most dynamic coffee consumption in recent years has been found in emerging markets, which are predominantly newly industrialized countries experiencing considerable economic and social development, currently exhibiting annual growth rates of around 5%. It is worth noting that South Korea is a major driver of growth in national consumption in emerging markets, with a total national consumption increase by 50% since 2000 to reach around 1.8 million bags. Imports of coffee by South Korea are valued at over $500 million per year, which is an indicative of the increased importance of such dynamic consuming country. This growth in consumption could help maintain a balance between supply and demand. In addition, the development of the processing industry in exporting countries could enable them to increase added value in the coffee sector. The barriers to increase coffee consumption in many exporting countries and emerging markets are related mainly to cultural and economic factors, since per capita GDP is generally low and coffee is considered a luxury item in some countries and subject to high levels of taxation. As income rises and Western lifestyles are diffused among the population, consumption of coffee will become more prevalent. Finally, sustainable development of the coffee economy should also be based on actions designed to promote a balance between supply and demand. These are the changing patterns of consumption. We are seeing 2003 compared to 2012. And very distinct changes in the patterns of coffee consumption around the world. While all these regions have increased their coffee consumption over the last 10 years, Asia and Oceania, from 15.6% to 25.5%, and in South America, from 18.1% to 24.8%. These are the two largest parts of the consumption. In this spirit, I am so pleased to be here in East Asia, home of some of the most dynamic coffee consumption and culture in the world. To our friends here in South Korea, I say we look forward to continue our communication and collaboration going forward. We need South Korea as part of the ICO. And I would like to end by saying that it's my earnest desire to invite experts on climate change, risk management, and other relevant issues to the coffee industry to share their experiences and knowledge with the ICO, so that with our concerted efforts, we can tackle these issues effectively and to the good of the coffee industry. I am open to take on board new methodologies to improve our market outlook. Thank you very much.